This presentation will discuss how to provision Cumulus onto a Lenovo ONIE-enabled switch using a DHCP and FTP server. Now, there are several ways that this image could be installed, including manual downloads and the use of a USB key. But ONIE supports an automatic discovery process which will search a server for an appropriate image for the hardware vendor, Lenovo, and the specific model on which it is running. ONIE supports the use of DHCP both to learn the address of the device on which it is running and to learn via DHCP options the location and protocol to use to fetch a software image. We will show this use of DHCP. Specifically, we will use DHCP options 66 and 67 to trigger the ONIE discovery process to get the image from a TFTP server. It is also possible to use option 114 to specify a URL and get the image from an HTTP or HTTPS server. Now, in order for this to be done, the server must be prepared. Now, we're using a server that is running TFTP and DHCP, and the DHCP configuration gives an address to the device we're going to use and also gives it a boot file name, which is a Cumulus image, and a TFTP server name or address from which it can download this image. The way this is set up, the switch will always load the image in the cumulus.bin file when it is placed into ONIE install mode. For the normal DHCP discovery process to occur, the DHCP server would have to have some configurations changed. The provisioning process that we will go through, which is a NE2572 server that comes with NOS, and the same would work on an NE132 server. We will initiate the process by setting the switch to boot the ONIE image with the boot ONIE image uninstall command. What will happen is CNOS will be deinstalled, and the switch will reboot into ONIE install mode, copy and download the Cumulus installer, and then run the Cumulus installer and actually run the install. For the open software versions of our switches, the switch will immediately boot into ONIE install mode. There would be no need to deinstall a CNOS image. To convert a switch back to use CNOS, we can use ONIE rescue mode to manually deinstall the Cumulus image and install any other one using the URL of the image. The standard file name for ONIE images for CNOS on our switches is shown on the slide. And one thing to note about this standard file name is that it does have no provision for indicating the release of firmware, so some caution would be called for. Once Cumulus is booted, there are some additional steps required. They include installing a license key for Cumulus, setting the ports in other than their default speed modes, which is 25 gig for ports 1 to 48 on the 2572, and 100 gig for 49 to 54. And this is done using the ports.conf file, which must be edited. Additional steps are required to go and use a breakout cable for the 100 gig ports. All of the switch ports on a switch which has a newly installed Cumulus image on it are in administratively down state. The net add interface command is used to bring them up. Additional features such as trunk or access port configuration, VLANs, and aggregation can then be configured, and this is described in the Cumulus documentation. This is a sample ports.conf file. And what is done here is that all of these ports that support 10 gig are set to 10 gig, and the 100 gig ports are set to 40 gig. With Cumulus at this time on the 2572, ports 1 through 8 cannot be set to 10 gig. So we will now walk through the steps in the provisioning process. The first step, shown in the left-hand screenshot, is to reboot the switch to ONIE image uninstall. It will uninstall the operating system and only the ONIE image will be preserved. You do have to say yes for this twice. Once you do that, the switch will reboot. It will bring up the grub menu and default to uninstall the OS, and it will do that by wiping out the partitions in the flash storage device on the switch. The switch will then reboot itself and go into install mode, as shown in the left-hand screenshot, and then go into auto discovery mode, as shown in the right-hand screenshot, using a variety of IPv6 addresses, including link local addresses, to attempt to find an installable image, and finally using TFTP to install the image that is passed to it by the DHCP and TFTP server. Switch will then reboot again and run the Cumulus installer, cleaning out any old partitions that remain, creating new partitions, and installing the Cumulus image. Finally, the switch will reboot yet again and go into actual Cumulus operation with a login screen and all the processes started as shown. And this takes somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes, and most of that time is spent cleaning out the partitions created and used by CNOS. As always, I'm available for any questions. Please reach out to me. Thank you.